Many of my students cracked the interviews and got jobs, and I believe you can also do the same. Hello friends, as per my research, .NET is the backend technology where the average salary is highest than any other backend technology. Now to get the job and for cracking the interview, today I am going to cover the top 10 .NET interview questions for candidates having 5 to 10 years of experience in .NET. Okay. You can also treat this video as a mock interview for your practice. Just listen to the question, pause the video, think about your own answer, and then listen to my answer and then compare. Okay? Hey, my name is Happy and I help candidates in cracking .NET interviews by posting .NET career related, jobs related, and interview guidance videos. If you don't want to miss those latest videos on .NET, then hit the like and subscribe button. Now let's start with the first question of this video. When to use a string and when string builder in real applications? Here is the code of the string and here is the code of the string builder. The answer is, if you want to change a string multiple times, then a string builder is the better option from performance point of view, because it will not create the new string every time, and like in the memory also there will be only one string. The same string will be updated. But if you have a string which is updated only once or twice, then you should prefer a string only, because a string is lightweight as comparison to a string builder class, which is quite heavy. Can we have only try block without catch block? The answer is yes, we can have try block, but then we must have finally block without catch block. Okay, so this is the code. Here there is no catch block. Okay, but when we need the try and finally together without the catch, now this inside the try block, if the code go inside if condition, then the method will return from here, right? And the lines after this will not be executed. The con.close will never executed. So to make sure it will execute, we will put this con.close in the finally block. Now you can return from anywhere in the method, but the finally will definitely execute. That's why try and finally are sometimes good without the catch. Alright friends, before we hit the next question, if you have not yet accepted my never give up challenge, then accept it. Make a promise and commitment to yourself, no matter how tough it gets, no matter how many rejections you will face, but you will never give up until you crack the interview. That is also my own struggle story with interviews. Accept this challenge by writing never give up in the comment section right now. Trust me, the moment you write it, you will feel an instant boost of confidence and motivation towards your goal. What is authentication and authorization in ASP.NET MVC? These are the basic concepts, so let's quickly revise them. See this diagram. Authentication is who are you, or basically checking your identity based on your username and password. Okay. And authorization, if you see, it is checking your rights to do a particular thing or to perform a particular operation. For example, are you an admin user or not, or a normal user? That is authorization. Now, if you are a normal user, then you can do two things. If you are admin user, then you can do all the things. So the definition of authentication first is, authentication is the process of verifying the identity of a user by validating their credentials such as username and password. Okay. Whereas authorization is the process of allowing an authenticated user to access the resources. Authentication is always precedes to authorization, means it always happens before authorization. In normal applications also, like first user will log in, that is authentication, and then user will navigate to the different parts of the website based on the role. Like if it is a normal user, then some rights, but if he is a admin user, then all the rights. That is authorization. What are the types of authentication in ASP.NET MVC? We have 4 types of authentication in ASP.NET MVC. This is a theoretical question, okay? So first one is the form authentication. It is a cookie-based authentication mechanism that uses user credentials stored in database to authenticate the user, okay? This is the most common one. And here is setting in config file where you can set the, like in the screenshot you can see, you can set the login form name like this, okay? Second one is passport authentication. Passport authentication is a centralized mechanism provided by Microsoft, okay? So basically instead of using your own forms, we can use Microsoft forms, okay, like this. The benefit is they are third party mechanism, but they are very secure. Like the normal hacker can access your database but to hack the Microsoft database is not easy. But yes, then you have to trust on the Microsoft this passport authentication. The next type of authentication is token authentication. Token authentication mechanism that uses JSON web tokens to authenticate user. Now, it is commonly used in single page application or APIs where the user credentials are not stored on the web server, okay? So for this, I have given a detailed answer in web API section, okay? The last one is Windows authentication. It is a mechanism that uses the user's Windows credentials to authenticate the user. It is typically used in intranet scenarios where you do not have access to the normal internet, and basically your Windows account credentials are going to be used for like authenticating you, okay? All right, these are the few authentication techniques you can share to anyone. What are REST guidelines? What is the difference between REST and RESTful? This is a theoretical question. If you see this diagram, we have a REST API here, which is getting a request from the client and responding back then, right? Why we are calling this web API as REST API? Because we have followed some REST guidelines while creating this API, okay? One more thing here, not just web API, but web services or even WCF services. If they will follow the REST guidelines, then they will also be called RESTful service, okay? Now let's see what are those guidelines which are like REST guidelines. What are those? The first is separation of client and server. As per the REST guidelines, the implementation of the client and server must be done independently without each knowing about the other. For example, a client UI can be developed in Angular, React, or any other front-end technology, okay? But it should not be dependent on the server technology on which web API is developed. So web API can be in .NET, Java, C#, Node.js, and client is Angular something. So they are different. Separation of client and server. Okay. Second guideline is stateless. The server will not store anything about the latest HTTP request the client will make. It will treat every request as new request. So if you remember sessions and those server state management techniques where we save the things on the server, that should not be there. Like sessions should not be there. That will make your application stateless. Okay. Now, no server-side state management techniques. Third guideline is uniform interface. Identify the resources by the URL itself. That means by looking at this URL, you can identify what resources this request is looking for. For example, by looking at this URL, I can say, okay, this resources is, we are looking for the list of the questions. Okay, so questions is basically the resources here, basically the data. We call data and resources interchangeably. Okay. Fourth guideline is cacheable. The REST guideline says the API response should be cacheable to improve the performance. Whatever your API will respond, that must be cacheable. Then only it will be like following the REST guideline. And the fifth guideline is layered system. The system should follow layered pattern. For example, MVC is a layered system, okay? Because MVC we have a model view controller, it's a different layers, right? Then because the reason is then your system is easy to scale. It will accommodate more and more requests in future. So these are the main guidelines. There are, I think, some more guidelines, but these are like enough to know. And if you follow these guidelines in your system, then it is a RESTful service. Your system will be a RESTful service, okay? There is nothing special about a RESTful service. Now the question was, what is the difference between REST and RESTful? REST we already know. Now the second part we already know that if any system is following REST guidelines, then it will be called as REST service or RESTful service also, right? Hi friends, just a small notification. This video is part of my full course Top 500 .NET Interview Questions, including topics like .NET Core, Web API, SQL, Solid Principle, etc. All questions PDF book link is also present below in the description. So like these candidates who cracked the interviews and got offers via this course, and if you don't want to miss anything for your interviews, then you can try this course. Otherwise, no problem. Let's continue. What is JWT authentication? Again, a very important question in Web API. And the simple answer is JWT authentication is a token based authentication where JWT is just the token format. Okay. So JWT stands for JSON Web Token. And this is the way JWT authentication works. First, the user, like the token based authentication only, but let's just revise once more. First, the username and password are sent by the client to the Web API server. The server will validate those credentials and will send back a JWT token secret. Okay. Now with every request, the browser will send the JWT token only, not the credentials again. And that also in the authorization header, the JWT token in authorization header it will send. Then Web API will again validate and check the JWT signature that it will get from the JWT token. So token will be verified at the server, and if it looks good, then the server will send back the requested data or the responses in the or the resources in the response. So that is the basic process of the JWT authentication. How to implement dependency injection in .NET Core? Let's start with the problem first. If you will understand what's the problem without the dependency injection, then it will be more clear to you, okay? Suppose you are working in a project for an institution which provide coaching classes, okay? Right now they are focusing only on maths classes. They want you now to create an application for managing maths class students. As a developer, you will create a class for math student class like this. This math student class will have a method getStudentCount, which will return the number of maths students. Right now, just for simplicity, I hard-coded it as 50. Now to expose this method, you will create a controller which will return it to the view or Web API, okay? Like this as shown here. I named this controller as first controller for simplicity again, but the name can be different in real application. In this controller, you will simply create the object of math student class and call its method getStudent like this. This is the normal way of object creation, right? Now the problem is, after some months, your client or manager will ask you to replace this math student with the new science student class. Here is the new science student class. Now the method name is math student class and getStudentCount, but the class is different, okay? So method name is same inside both classes, but the class name is different. So now what you will do, because your project has to be very flexible, right? It should accept any number of changes. So can it now what you will do, inside the first controller, you will simply replace this math student with the science student class. That is very simple. But in a big or enterprise level applications, there will be many controllers, like hundreds of controllers, which are also creating the object of the math student class. Now like this, we can have a second controller which is again creating the math student class and calling this method, and similarly we have many more controllers and all are creating the object. So if you will replace all the math student class with the science student class in all the 100 controllers, so much code changes are required for that, and I guarantee you will miss one or two of them and then testers will grab your collar. Okay, so that is the problem, because for one change you have to do 100 at 100 places. So because more and also more code changes will lead to more errors and more testing will be required, and this is the problem, and this is the problem we call tight coupling, because first controller class is tightly coupled with math student class. And here what we will do now, with the help of dependency injection, we will do loose coupling between this first controller class with the math student class. Okay, so meaning we will code and design the controller in a manner so that there will be no code change required in the controllers. If we will replace the maths with science class or history class or any other class, no code change will be required in these controllers. Now in avoid to now, so first step to do this is, first we have to create one interface, that is iStudent, like this, which will only contains the declaration of the method, this getStudentCount methods, no definition, no implementation. Then inherit this iStudent interface in math student and science student class like this. See, the base class interface iStudent is added, nothing else. Now you have registered your iStudent interface with math student class in the startup class file configure service method like this. So you have to register your iStudent interface service. Okay, and the name of the actual service is math student. If you are new to add singleton, then don't worry, I will explain this in upcoming question. But here you can just understand that this is used to register math student class of iStudent type. This is the role of configure service method, to register the services. If you are using again .NET 6.0, then there you have to add the same thing in the main method of the program file. Okay, it means now what this means, what this adding the service here, registering the service, what does it mean? It means wherever iStudent interface will be injected, there math student class will be used. Okay, now your first controller code should not be creating the object of the math student class. Instead, the new first controller will look something like this. See here, now if you remember dependency injection concept, basic concept, then here we are injecting the dependency iStudent object in the constructor of the first controller class, and then we are calling the getStudentCount method of this interface. Now since math student class is registered with the iStudent, therefore here it will call the getStudentCount method of the math student class only. Okay, see, as a result, first controller class now is not tightly coupled with math student class. How it is not tightly coupled? Because if now you will replace this math student class with the science student class, then that you have to need to change, that's only inside this configure services method, not here inside the controllers. Now if your manager will ask you like any class update, so you need not to change the same thing in the second controller or third controller or any controller. Okay, you just replace math student with science student here in the configure services method only, like this, and all the controllers where iStudent service was injected will automatically started using the getStudentCount method of the science student class instead of math student class. See, only one word of code change and all your controllers will be referring to the new methods. You have saved 100 lines of code. If you see, we are not creating the object, rather injecting the interfaces, right? So that is the whole story. the tight coupling problem and how we will solve this tight coupling problem with the help of dependency injection. Now, what are the advantages of using interfaces and loose coupling? That I will explain in upcoming question. What is add singleton, add scoped and add transient method? Very important question this is. Let's try to understand add singleton first. And if you know singleton design pattern, then it's very easy for you. Okay. The definition is add singleton method create only one instance when the service is requested for first time, and then the same instance will be shared by all different HTTP requests. Okay, remember singleton pattern, that is almost same. Here in the diagram you can also see only one instance is used throughout the application lifetime, right? Now let's see when we need this singleton practically in real applications. Suppose you create an application and you want to log all the application exceptions or informations in a text file. Now what you will do? Once a request will arrive, you will write the code that if any exception occur, then open the text file and write the exception, right? For all other requests also, you will not open the text file again. Rather, you will use the same open text file and add and update the new errors in the same log file from the different request. In these kinds of cases, you will use add singleton. Why? Because multiple requests have to use this same log file, right? Like here we are registering the logger service here, then we are not creating the same class instance for different requests. Okay, same object instance will be shared between multiple requests for this. Now the next one is add scoped. Add scoped method creates single instance but per request. For every individual request, there will be a single instance or object. See the diagram here, one object, one instance per request here. Okay. The real application use is, suppose there is a payment service in your application and you do not want that this payment instance of a particular request of a particular user will be shared with any other request, any other user request, right? That is payment, because different requests should have different object or instance. Payment information must not be shared. For this, you will register the payment service with the help of add scoped method like this. It will make sure the payment object or instance will only be available in the same request and will not be shared. Add scoped is the most used method also. So if you are confused which one to use in your application, then go for add scoped. The last one is add transient. Add transient instance will not be shared at all, even within the same request. Every time a new instance will be created. Now see the diagram. For same request, multiple instances of the same services are created at different points. The real application use, suppose your application gets data from multiple databases like this tenant A, B, C. Now you have one connection object in your request, right? One connection object you will create. Then you need to change the database connection string of the same object in the same request for different databases A, B, C to connect with, right? For that, you have to kill the first database instance and then create the new instance to map the new database. So why you will do that? So at that time you will use add transient method, because you can, in this you cannot use the same database instance with the same request. Every time you need to connect with another database, you have to create the new object of the data access. New object is required inside the same request, right? Here is the code to register the data access service with the help of add transient method in your application like this. Great. I think now you know all the methods of service lifetimes and what are their real applications use, right? What is Liskov substitution principle? For this principle, I will first explain the normal definition, and at the end, I will share one very easy statement about LSP. Let's see the normal definition first and understand with the help of the code. The Liskov substitution principle, LSP, states that an object of a child class must be able to replace an object of the parent class without breaking the application. Remember, child class, subclass and derived class are same things, and parent class, superclass and base class are same things. Okay, now let's see the example code. First, we will see how to follow the Liskov substitution principle, and then we will see how we can violate the LSP. Okay. Suppose you have a parent class employee which have two virtual methods, calculate salary and calculate bonus, like this. For simplicity, I am not calculating here anything but just returning 1 lakh as salary and 10,000 as bonus. Okay. Now we have one class, permanent employee, which is derived from the employee class. This class override the calculate salary method of the base class and set a new salary, and this class will automatically get the calculate bonus method from the base class, right? Because we are not overriding it here. And as the rule of the inheritance, base class methods will be automatically available for the derived classes. Simple, right? Now we have one more class, contractual employee class, which is again derived from the employee base class. Here we will again override the calculate salary method of the base class, like this. But this contractual employee class does not supposed to have this calculate base bonus method of the base class, because bonus is not applicable for contractual employees. Okay, therefore here we have to override the calculates bonus method and throw the error like this. Why we are throwing the error here? Because if we do not override the calculate bonus method and write no code here, then by default the contractual employee will automatically get the calculate bonus method of the employee class, parent class, like the permanent employee class inherited it, right? And if anyone in future will create the object of the contractual employee class, then that object will be able to call calculate bonus class then, right? Which we do not want, because as per the rule of the contractual employee class, that should not be able to call bonuses, right? So to stop that, we have to override this method here and we have to throw the error. Now if someone will create the object of this contractual employee class and call calculate bonus method, then they will get this error, right? Now let's first follow the LSP and then we will violate the LSP. First, inside the main method, we will create the object of the base employee class like this, and we will also create the object of the derived classes also here. Now first, we will call the methods from the base class objects like this. See, no problem, and 1 lakh and 10,000 will be the output as salary and bonus, okay? Because that we got from the base class methods, right? Now listen carefully and read the definition again. The LSP states that an object of a child class must be able to replace the object of the parent class. Okay, so as per the definition, we will replace the parent class object employee with the permanent employee child class object P employee like this to call the exact same methods. And see, your application will not break. These methods will completely work fine, right? And the output will be like 2 lakhs and 10,000 this time. That means here we are following the LSP for the permanent employee class case, right? Because here object of a child class is able to replace the object of the parent class without breaking the application. Now we will see how to violate LSP, when we will violate LSP. Now we will replace the parent class object employee with the contractual employee child class object C employee to call again the same exact methods like this. Okay, here the first call of calculate salary will work fine, right? But the second call of calculate bonus will break the application and this exception will come. So here object of the child class is not able to replace the object of the parent class because the application breaks, and therefore for this particular example where employee is the base class and contractual employee is the child class, we are not following LSP. Now might be you will say the error is expected, right? Because yes, we are throwing the error inside the calculate bonus method of the contractual employee class here. Yes, this is expected. But we were forced to throw the error here. That is because we have to do. Because otherwise, I already explained you like how contractual employee class will automatically inherit this bonus method, right? But we should never design our classes and methods in this way, in such a way where we have to throw the error like this. Okay, this thing we should avoid. So when designing base classes and derived classes, then we should make sure that whatever methods we are keeping in the base classes, okay, those methods must be applicable for the derived classes also. Derived class can override the base methods, and that is completely fine. But by default, if those methods are not overridden, then all the methods of the base class must be applicable for the derived class. That should be the ideal design approach as per the LSP. Like in our example, all employee class methods are applicable for permanent employee classes, right? All methods, and therefore that they are following LSP. But for contractual employee class case, our design is not good, as we are throwing errors here. And because calculate method, we all know the reason, and that's why we are violating the LSP here. All right. Now we can correct the design, like we should to correct this design and to follow LSP for contractual employee also, we should remove this calculate bonus from the employee base class and put it somewhere else, like some other class, some abstract class interface, some other design we can do, but we should not do like this. Finally, as I said in the beginning, the short statement for LSP, or the in other words, what we can how we can define the LSP is, all the base class methods must be applicable for the derived classes also. All the methods. Okay, I think this is the simpler definition. Great. Now I think you have a good understanding of the LSP, and even in your projects you now know how to implement LSP, right? What is singleton design pattern? This is a very important question. The definition is, the singleton design pattern is a creational design pattern that ensures a class has only one instance of it. Only one instance. Meaning until the application is running, only one object or instance of the class will be used. Multiple objects will not be created of the same class. And then the same object will be shared by the multiple requests also. Okay, so normally we have class like this with method inside it, right? Then we create the object of the class like this and then call the method from the object, right? It's the traditional way. In our applications, wherever we need this method, we will call at multiple places in multiple requests. We create the object of the class multiple places then. But in singleton pattern, we have to create the object only once, and then we have to use it at multiple places. This is how we are going to create the object of the singleton class via this getInstance method. Okay, now this code is implementing singleton class, and it has 4 steps which I am going to explain. First step is declare class as sealed to prevent any further inheritance. Now, if some other class will inherit this singleton class, then it will violate that singleton design pattern. So that's why we are putting sealed here, so that any other class should not inherit it. Second step is declare a static instance of this class, because only static instance you can use inside static method getInstance. Okay, so like if you will not put it static here, then inside getInstance method you getting this if instance equal to null, that instance will show you the compile time error. You can try it, it will not allow otherwise. Third step is to create a private constructor so that no one can create the object of this singleton class. So no object we need of this singleton class, that's why private constructor. Now sealed will not let anyone to inherit from this class, and private constructor will not allow the object creation of this class. Okay, that is good for singleton. And the last step is to create a method, the getInstance method, which will check whether the instance is null. If yes, it is null, then it will create the new instance, and if not null, then it will return the same instance which is already created by which is already created at first time. This is the way we will use same instance again and again for multiple requests, and this is the purpose of the singleton design pattern. How to make this singleton pattern thread safe? Now let's see what is thread safe and how we can make the pattern thread safe. This is the normal singleton pattern we already discussed in previous question. Okay, now suppose we have a multi-threaded application in which we are working, and now here two different threads reach here at the same time at this position if instance equal to null. Then both these threads T1 and T2 will check this condition here, and for both instance both threads it will be null, right? Then both will enter inside this create new instance, which means now they will create two instances, which is the violation of the singleton pattern. So now we have to make our singleton pattern thread safe, so that it is not allowed. Okay, this is not good that these two threads are creating two instances at the same point of time. Now for that, first we will create a read-only object padlock like this, and then we will apply this lock method over this if condition. This lock will allow only one thread T1 at a time inside it. So okay, so this lock it will not allow both the T1 and T2 get inside at the same point of time, and it will let the other thread T2 to wait. So when T1 will do his job, will create the instance and come out of this lock method, then instance is already created, right? And then for the second thread T2, when it will go inside and it will check this null condition, it will fail because the instance is already created by T1, right? And it will return the same instance from here. So this is how now our this application is like thread safe. Our singleton pattern is like thread safe. So basically the one word answer is we have to use the lock to make our singleton pattern as thread safe. Okay. What is factory pattern? Why to use factory pattern? The first point you should know about factory pattern is the factory pattern is a creational design pattern and manages object creation. Okay, now I will show you the example first without factory pattern and what is the problem there, and then I will show you how to implement factory design pattern and resolve that problem. Okay, see this code. Here we have the concrete classes Java and .NET with concrete methods. Java get framework return Spring Boot, and .NET get framework method return .NET Core. Now we will use these method in a very normal way like this. See, this is the client code, and inside the main method we are creating the object of Java class and then calling the method and printing the value, and output will be Java Spring Boot. Same way we are creating the object of .NET class and final output will be .NET Core. Very traditional approach, nothing important here. Now here we have two problems with this approach. First is a lot of new keywords are here. See, new Java, then new .NET, right? And the second in a big application, if we have 50 technologies like Node, PHP, etc., then you will be having 50 new keywords here, which will not look good. Okay. Second problem is inside the client code, client will know all the concrete classes names. Concrete means these are the actual classes like Java and .NET, right? So for some project, this is a security issue because they do not want to expose the actual classes name in their client code. Okay, so these are the two problems, and now we will solve them with the help of factory design pattern. And for that we have three types of factory design patterns. First is simple factory, then we have factory method, and the last we have abstract factory design pattern. In this question we will use the simple factory pattern, and if you will know then only you can understand the abstract factory and factory method. Okay, so in upcoming question we will explain factory method and abstract factory. Now here in simple factory we have an interface itech with a method get framework. Okay, then two concrete classes Java and .NET which implement the itech interface and provide their implementation of the get framework like this. Then we have a simple factory class tech factory with a method create tag that takes a string parameter tag type, and this method returns an instance of the corresponding Java or .NET object that implements the itech interface, right? So if Java class is inherited from itech, then it can return itech interface. At last in the client code, we created an instance of this tag factory. So this is the factory class, okay, this tag factory. So why we are calling it factory? Because it will now create all the objects. It will like this main method or the client code will not create the class objects. So that's why this is factory, because it is a factory for creating the objects. So see, inside the client code we created an instance of the tech factory first and use it to create instance of Java and .NET by calling this create tag method with this appropriate tag type, whatever it is. Finally, in the output, the respective framework information get framework method, your output will be there. So your problem is solved. There are no new keywords in this client code right now. And second, we are not using even the concrete classes name here. See, no Java and I mean yes, we are using this Java and .NET strings here, but you can change this strings parameters strings, right, and make them something like J string or which are not related to Java name. Okay, so one caution here in factory design pattern, and that is it is not good for small projects. Okay, you can see how many lines of codes are here and it needs lots of planning, right? So it's good for big projects which are really big, then it will be good, but not for small projects. Finally, now we will conclude the definition. Factory pattern provides an interface or abstract class for creating the objects, but lets the subclasses decide which class to instantiate. Okay, so interface, one tech factory we have to create, and here instead of itech interface you can also see we have this itech interface. You can also use here some abstract class, okay, with abstract method. Now this definition is slightly complex, so even you can make it more simpler, and you can say in simple factory pattern, one factory class, here tech factory is that class, is responsible for creating all the objects for its derived or subclasses. Okay, great. I think now you know some basics of factory design pattern, and also you know what is simple factory design pattern, right? All right, congratulations for completing all the questions. If you have reached here, that means you have the courage and patience required for cracking the interviews. Just don't stop here and keep rolling until you get your goal. Okay, only one recommendation from my side. If you have not started yet, then start giving interviews. As I always said, interviews are the best form of learning. Interviews help you not just in learning, but if you are selected, the reward is very, very good. Okay. And if you are not selected, then remember, you will still lose nothing. Not giving interviews is even worse than facing rejections in interviews, because not attending the exam means the opportunity is gone. Companies will hire someone else, they will not wait for you. Okay, but if you are rejected in interview, then at least you will learn new things and next time you are more prepared, right? So start giving interviews and do accept my never give up challenge until you crack the interview. Okay, accept the challenge now by writing never give up in the comment section. Finally, all the best from my side, and I will support you in your career journey by posting the interviews, careers, and the job videos continuously. Join my interview cracking community by pressing the like and subscribe button. Thank you so much.